On the agenda tonight, we're going to be comparing the vocals of Paul McCartney from 1964 to 1968. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So this was a very specific request and we're going to be taking a look at Can't Buy Me Love from 1964, and in 1965 I'm going to be taking a look at Yesterday, and 1968 is going to be Hey Jude. And I've thrown Yesterday in there at 1965 because Can't Buy Me Love is double-tracked vocally. It might even be more than double-tracked, as we will hear when we have a listen to those isolated vocals. I know that we've been looking at pitch correction and auto-tune recently while my wrist is healing, and some of the remasters, people have been asking whether bands are getting auto-tuned all the way back from the 60s. And this is something that I thought about while I was listening to these songs, because I was listening to the remastered version of Yesterday and I had a listen to it, and my dad's got the original vinyl, so I put the vinyl on and the pitches were almost a semitone out. So I got a bit sidetracked and did an analysis of the vocal waveforms from the original vinyl, compared it with the remastered version to see if there was in fact any pitch correction going on with the new remastered releases. So just as a little bonus to the start of this video, let's have a listen to the remastered version of Yesterday and we'll have a look at the vocal waveforms on screen as I call them and see what they look like. So we can see that already on the remastered version we have got notes that are flat, we have got some notes that are dead on the line, and taking this back, because we're not going to spend very long on this, you could see here that we're bang on the line on that D4. When we now look at these vocal waveforms with the vinyl superimposed, and it's actually going to be slightly in the background because the speeds are different, and because it was higher in pitch, it meant that it was running faster on that original vinyl. So, as we have a little look through here, all I'm looking for with reference to pitch correction is any change in the waveforms on screen, because if they are changed, it will stick out like a sore thumb. This is also testament to the accuracy of this app. Vocal Pitch Monitor is free on the Android store, the Google Play Store. I'm not sponsored to mention it at all, but this shows the accuracy of it hearing pitches because it's really good. We're going to have a little go forward here. All we're looking for is a replication of the lines that are fuller in yellow and the ones that are slightly faded out. The faded out is the vinyl. So let's take a little fast forward here, and you can start to see that where we overlap, we have this perfect replication of this line, or this waveform as I'm calling them, and even to the point here where we have this little ascension with the note. You can see here it's that perfect replication of the waves, which shows you that what we're looking at and what we're hearing is exactly the same vocal that Paul did in the studio, but just twice. And this is the kind of thing that would not be replicated if it was pitch corrected. A lot of this would be now snapped to the lines. And again, look at these forms here. Just totally, I mean, that's a perfect replication. Just for fun, let's have a quick listen to the vinyl.
Yesterday, all my troubles seem so far away. Now it looks as though they're here to stay. Oh, I believe in yesterday.
And there we have it. And just to show you what the remastering process does, now we'll listen to the remastered version.
Yesterday, all my troubles seem so far away.
So you might be able to tell that Paul's voice is now brighter. And here they've just boosted that top end of Paul's voice in order to get it brighter. They would have probably boosted a lot of the mids and that top end of the original, because when you go back to listening to the vinyl, and
now it looks as though they're here to stay,
it almost sounds like it's being sung through. It's not as dramatic as sounding like it's sung through a pillow, but when you cover your mouth like this is getting rid of all the top end. You probably couldn't hear what I was saying. That's getting rid of all the top end of the voice. All the brightness, when you cover it, is now taking all that top end out. So it doesn't sound as bright. So when we go back to yesterday remastered,
now it looks as though they're here to stay.
The vinyl.
Now it looks as though they're here to stay.
So it almost sounds like they're obviously not a hand covering Paul's mouth, but maybe being sung through something, because you lose a bit of that brightness. Anyway, let's not get into remastering, because it's a very complicated process, but just to show the effect it has on Paul's voice in this isolated vocal. So into the comparison, we're going to be having a listen to Can't Buy Me Love from 1964 to begin with. Let's get it going.
Can't buy me love, love, can't buy me love. I'll buy you a diamond ring, my friend, if that makes you feel alright. I'll get you anything, my friend, if it makes you feel alright. 'Cause I don't care too much for money, but money can't buy me love. I'll give you all I got to give if you say you love me too. I may not have a lot to give, but what I got I'll give to you. I don't care too much for money, but money can't buy me love, can't buy me love.
I'm just going to jump in here because we've got a lot of information to be getting on with. I'm going to approach this as if I'm analysing just anybody's voice to look for similarities between them as we go through the years. So in 1964, this is multi-tracked, by the way. There's more than one vocal going on here, and you'll be able to hopefully hear that quite clearly, that there's at least 2, maybe 3 vocals, and Paul's really leaning into his sound. When we start to get up to the G4, he starts to get a little bit of rasp in his voice, and this is something to look out for. Up at this note, G4 and higher, rasp starts to come into his vocal. We can see that pretty much Paul, I know that it's 2 vocals, so that the vocal pitch monitor is taking an average of those 2 or 3 voices, but it looks pretty much like we are either directly on the note, so Paul really accurate. The more voices you add to it, it's a little bit of a cheat, because the more voices you hear, the more accurate the notes start to sound. And just think of a football crowd. They sound like they're in tune, but if you were to hear them all individually, there'll be some people in there who are getting nowhere near the notes that are supposed to be sung. But because it's a crowd of people, you're getting roughly the right tune to whatever they're singing. When we're looking at these, you can see that we're either kind of on the line here, or we're slightly sharp. And moving forward, still pretty much the same. Here, a little bit sharp, and then dead on the line, a little bit sharp, dead on the line, touching here, dead on the line, touching here, and then on the line. So we can start to say that this vocalist, whoever they are, dead on the line of 440 Hz tuning, or they're slightly sharp. Now, a major thing to consider is the fact that Can't Buy Me Love is sharp. So the recording, when you play it back, if you sit down at a piano, you'll find that the piano is slightly flat. If you were to play these notes on a piano, it would sound flat. So it means that all of these notes that are dead on the line, in reality, to 440 Hz tuning, are actually flat. So as we move it forward, all of these notes that we see, like here, for example, dead on the line, those would be flat of the line. And here, when we're sharp, those would be dead on the line. So you've got to imagine all of the waveforms that we're looking at, just bring them down ever so slightly, probably about the amount that we can see here, being sharp of the G4. That would have been bang on. So there could be a couple of reasons for this. First of all, that I can think of is that the turntable was just moving a little bit too fast, and when they converted it to digital, it was therefore sharp because it's spinning a little bit too fast. But I think more likely is when they recorded this in the studio, it is a guitar-based song. So if you listen to the whole song, you'll just hear the guitar solo in there, the rhythm guitar, the bass. I think they've tuned to each other, and they were possibly tuned to 440 hertz to begin with, but then their guitars are now slightly out of tune, but they're tuning to each other and then recording the vocal, not knowing that they're slightly sharp of, if they were to play a piano in 440 hertz tuning that was perfectly in tune, they would be sharp of that. But when you've got your guitars in tune, it doesn't matter because you're just singing then to the tuning of the guitar. So let's revisit yesterday, this time focusing on these vocal waveforms that we have on screen. And this is going to be a little bit more applicable to what we're doing in this video because it's more of a ballad, slower tempo, and just a single voice. And we get that on Hey Jude as well, which we will compare it with in a minute. So let's have a listen. So when we get back to just looking at these waves on screen, we can start to deduce that this vocalist, the backing for yesterday, by the way, is bang in tune, 440 hertz. We've got the whole orchestra in there as well. So they're very strict with the tuning. And we can see that this vocalist is either dead on the note or has a tendency to be slightly flat all the time. Whenever they don't hit the note, they are slightly flat. So I'm just pretending this isn't Paul McCartney and just seeing what we can take from these vocals. Look at here again. Flat, 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 flat. It's not going to sound flat when you're listening to it because it's close enough to the note that your ear is going to think that it's bang on, and just taking it back. And again, this isn't saying flat as an insult to Paul's vocals. Being flat just means you're slightly under the pitch of whatever you might be aiming for, and being slightly sharp means you're slightly over the pitch that you're aiming for, so it's not an insult. And going back to here again, I mean, bang on here, slightly flat, bang on, slightly flat again, slightly flat again, flat again. So we start to get this really strong indication that this person's singing, when they're not just nailing it on the lines like he does quite regularly, he's going to be slightly flat. When we now look back at these waveforms and we know that this is running sharp, it means that all of these times where we're pretty much on the line or slightly sharp, that would be slightly below the line, which would be flat to 440 hertz tuning. That syncs up with this particular vocalist, that this is definitely the same voice from 1964 to 1965. So let's get our last entry, 1968. So let's have a look at these vocal waveforms and see whether this vocalist, whoever they may be, is going to be slightly flat. Let's have a look.
Hey Jude, don't make it bad. Take a sad song and make it better. Remember to let her into your heart, then you can start to make it better. Hey Jude, don't be afraid. You were made to go out and get her. The minute you let her under your skin, then you begin to make it better. And anytime you feel the pain, hey Jude, refrain. Don't carry the world upon your shoulder.
I'm just going to jump in there because I would love to have the original vinyl of Hey Jude so that I could do the same analysis on that, because we get a lot of notes here that are, especially when we started out, that are just dead on the line, as we have here. Look at the way that we're dead on that F4, and again, Hey Jude is perfectly in tune to 440 Hertz tuning. So as we take it forward, there are little bits where, again, we're dead on lines, again here, but now talking about the voice that we've just heard in 1965, comparing it to the voice that we're listening to in 1968, I know why this was requested. It was because of the conspiracy theory of Paul McCartney dying in 1966 and them getting another person in who looked exactly the same as Paul McCartney, who had exactly the same ability at playing the bass, compositional ability as well, had the same vocal range, and there are a million other things that, for me, it really doesn't make sense that you would think, especially Liverpool, having a Liverpudlian accent, Liverpool's not a big place. So finding somebody else that is exactly the same as a person who can just come in and do exactly the same things at the same level, it doesn't really make sense, especially if you've been in a band at any level. Just trying to find a bassist, full stop, is an impossibility, let alone one who, looks the same, is left-handed, and it just does everything the same as the other guy. But anyway, we can now look at the vocal from 1965 to 1968. And we can see that the two vocals that we're looking at, when this guy here is not hitting the notes dead on, guess what? He is always slightly flat of the note. And all we've got to do is look at these waves. Bang on, slightly flat. And here, pretty much bang on, if not slightly flat. We'll keep on going through. Here, we're flat, ascending. Here, bang on, and just touching it, bang on again. Moving forward. Here, we are bang on, and then, I mean, this could be super flat. If we listen to that, let's see if that's actually the same note.
You go out and...
Yes, that was supposed to be an F4 the second time round as well. This is just the tendency of the vocalist that we're listening to. And this isn't something you can control consciously. This is a subconscious part of Paul's voice that is just a little bit flat. And you're not going to be able to tell that it's flat. It doesn't sound flat when you listen to it. It's only when you're looking at this on screen, these vocal waveforms, that we can see it's flat. And it's the kind of detail you won't be able to hear anything in, but when you look at it, you can start to say, oh, this is the voice of that person in 1965, because he was flat in exactly the same way subconsciously, and this is exactly the same, 1968. So without doubt, we are listening to the same voice here, because if you got somebody else in to try and imitate this voice that he's heard and he's been told to try and imitate, he would not be doing this. You can't do this accurately because it's subconscious. You would have to have studied the voice with technology that now exists in 2022 back in 1966. This didn't exist, so they wouldn't have known that, oh, and by the way, we're trying to really imitate his voice as closely as we can get it. So try and be a little bit flat if you do nail the note dead on, and you wouldn't even be able to measure whether you're nailing the note dead on, because again, you wouldn't be able to do this in 1966. When he gets up to this G4 area, getting into the top end of the male tenor range here, and let me take that back again, we'll have a listen to that top note. We'll have a listen to that G4 as well, actually.
I'm in love. Everybody tells me so. Can buy me love. No, 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 say
So you can start to hear that rasp just getting in there at the G4, G sharp 4. This is where the rasp in this person's voice starts to come into effect. So these notes up here aren't super clean when he's keeping it in chest voice. So we know that the person who was singing in 1965, their voice starts to get raspier in chest voice at a G4 and above, in exactly the same way that in 1968, 4 years later, the same thing is happening. And again, this is so unique. It's a genetic makeup of the vocal cords that the rasp just happens at this point. it's clean underneath these notes all the way down here, and you'll hear it. But as soon as he wants to get up into that male tenor range, top end of and above, you'll hear this rasp starting to be introduced. I'm just going to take it forward to the part at the end of the song where he really goes for it, because we know that he does that at the end of Hey Jude. Let's have a listen. Okay, so there we had the A sharp 4 again, and it didn't pick it up very well because there's a lot of rasp on the sound. Ironically, the one thing that I'm trying to explain about is the reason that the vocal pitch monitor can't pick up the pitch because of the rasp on that vocal sound. So we've got the A sharp 4, and you can hear again we're above this G, so it means that in chest voice with Paul McCartney's voice in the 60s, whenever he got up to this kind of range, you would get rasp. It's just something that happened to his voice. Unless he was doing a very clean head voice sound, but that's a different vocal register. It's not chest voice. When he's leaning into his chest voice, you got this rasp automatically when he started getting up to that A sharp 4, the B4, the C5, the male tenor high C. But thank you guys for this more specific video request. Keep those coming in the comments section below. As always, let me know what you guys think, and if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Rock!